How does one forgive someone that hurt them when they were vulnerable, too young or too weak to fight back? It may feel as if the world is conspiring against you for some strange reason. The pain from this can run so deep that it almost becomes a badge of honor or trophy that feeds your ego with a well-earned hatred for this person and what they did to you for years. This hatred can build up for so long that you begin to make it a part of you and wonder what it will mean to let it go. You may wonder, I'm just a victim that allow others to push me around? Am I weak? How can anyone ever love someone like me? Some people hold on to this victim mentality because they feel this makes the person that hurt them forever lower than them because they now owe them. Therefore, if they forgive, they will forever be forgoing what they're owed. In this episode, we explore the 4 pillars that will help you forgive others and yourself to bring you true happiness, joyfulness, and freedom to live a better life. Our guest today, Amy Chuang, was born in China and moved to America when she was a teenager, which gives her a unique perspective on both Eastern and Western cultures. She studied many different religions and philosophies that has led her to the conclusion that they all come down to 4 pillars: compassion, forgiveness, love, and gratitude. In this podcast, Amy goes into great detail on how you can employ these 4 pillars in your life to not only forgive, but find true freedom from people that have harmed you. The 4 pillars create the right mental state so you can have a foundation of self-healing that will help you love yourself completely. You will be ready to cut the anchors that have been holding you in your desolate place for so many years. You may need to listen to this podcast more than once because it is packed full of powerful wisdom. If you know someone that could benefit from this, be the friend that extends a helping hand and share this podcast. Amy's advice will sink into your soul, making it shine brighter than it ever has before. Let's get started. Hi, and welcome to Make More Love, Not War. This is Terah Harrison, licensed professional counselor and relationship expert.
This is her husband, Jeff Harrison, of no qualifications whatsoever, just a normal dude.
Today we're speaking with Amy Chuang. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
So, Amy, you have a really interesting story because you moved to the United States when you were in the 8th grade. Mm-hmm. And where did you move from?
I moved from China, Shanghai, China, which is, one of the largest cities in the world.
Yeah, what was it like living there?
It was great. It was just, I was 8th grader and I had, lived with all my grandmother a lot of times. And because my parents were, basically they were kind of separated by distance because with communist country where they all assign you jobs in 2 different areas. And
oh, really?
Yes. At that time.
They would separate families like that. So,
yeah.
Your they already had kids. You were all living together and then they got assigned jobs in different places?
They actually assigned jobs at the time and now they don't. They assign jobs. They actually try to locate or distribute people to more isolated areas so they can, spread the knowledge. And both my parents were, college professors. So that's what they did. So I mainly stayed with my grandmother a lot when I was younger.
Wow, that's interesting. And did you have siblings that were also with your grandmother?
No, I'm only child.
Oh, okay.
But my cousins, some of my cousins were with my grandmother.
How would they pick where you would go? I mean, how did the process actually work when the government came and told them where they worked?
Well, I think because both my parents are chemical engineers, and they did. The government looked at to see which part of the country need a chemical engineer the most, and so then they get assigned.
And how far away did they move?
Between 2 of them, I think just by train, it's about 12 hours.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So they don't see each other. They see each other every quarter, 4 times a year.
And then how often would you see them?
They'll come to Shanghai and visit But a lot of families were like that at the time. That's after the Cultural Revolution. So everybody, it was a status quo. So people just kind of accepted it.
So interesting. So really, from when you were really little to 8th grade, would you say that your grandma raised you mainly? I mean, because you're with her most of the time?
Yeah, was most time with her, but then I stayed with my mom for a year, and then I stayed with my, other grandmother for a year. So it's moved around, but I guess what I learned is that I'm very good at making new friends and adjust to new situation, which helped me greatly when I came to this country without knowing any English.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So how did people feel about getting taken away by the government and going to these places? Did they think that's just the way it was, or that this is not right, or?
Well, at the time, I think because everybody or the college graduate was basically the government said, it's basically to spread the knowledge to the country. So they feel pretty honored at the time to do that. Because being communist at the time, it was basically they promote equality. So like male and female equality. So, all women worked. They hold same job as men. A lot of them made same or more amount of money as men counterparts. And so, for like my parents, both of them went to college. Both of them got higher education, become professors. And at the time, because everybody, if you are a factory worker, or if you are a professor, or if you are a doctor, you earn the same amount of salary each month. However, they are more honor based. Like people respect you more with higher education. Like if you're a doctor, you still make the same amount of money as maybe a production worker. However, people honor you by respecting you. So they were more on the prestige scale. And so at the time that people would think, well, I'm doing this to spread the knowledge to the poor rural areas. So they were okay with it because it's something they think they're doing for the greater good. But after you come to the United States, you're kind of like, oh, that's not status quo. Then you think back and, of course, that's families being, what's a marriage if you see each other, 3, 4, 5 times a year, right? And yeah, but it's very interesting because there's no divorces at the time. And not that I know of. And so husband and wife would stay together, and at the time, of course, there's no internet or anything. They just write letters, and they kept the relationship up. I think it's also in the tradition Asian thing, because once you get married, you're bound for life. You don't think there is a divorce at the time, because there's almost like, well, of course, if it's abusive relationship, you would. But if you're committed, you're committed.
Yeah, and it's work. It sounds like you're saying your parents put a lot of work into their relationship.
I would say so. I mean, they have to write to each other, communicate, and because phone calls are expensive at the time over long distance. So, yeah, they have to keep up with each other.
But even if there's no divorce, if two people don't really like each other, do they ever just sort of go, well, in my mind, I'd just disconnect. They're just somebody that I know. They're just kind of a friend, and a roommate that I live with, and I just deal with that.
I'm sure there are instances like that, but I was so young. I came here when I was 14. So with my immediate family and friend group, that I don't know anything. I'm sure there are, marriage that's not actually a marriage, just acquaintances and, being with being just have a piece of paper. And that happens here in this country too. There are people who are emotionally divorced. They're still married. It happens everywhere, I think.
So at age 14, that's such a big transition in your life.
Yes.
That middle school age, it's so tender. And then you have all of the transitions of your body, and also becoming a attracted to other people sexually and interested in them. And so you went from Eastern to Western ideals of love and marriage and family. And I wonder what that was like for you.
It was a big, big transition because I did not speak any English. I know the alphabet and very simple good morning, good night. And basically I've been just dumped into this either swim or you sink. And at the time, yes, being 8th grade, you kind of starting to like boys and so you want to be accepted. And so the first half a year was very difficult because when you don't speak a language, it's almost like you're disabled, like you are deaf. You are, you cannot speak. So people think you're stupid. So when you cannot communicate. And so I guess I couldn't make a lot of friends at the time. And that part is very difficult. And also, I was a straight A student when I was in China. So I came and suddenly I'm assigned to read a chapter. So I would go home, and at the time, of course, no internet. So I got this dictionary, English to Chinese dictionary or Chinese to English dictionary, and I would look up every word. So and mark and put the translation on it. So through the night, like 3 hours, I would finish one page.
Oh my gosh.
And just littered with, translations. So, but the second day I still have to go take a test. So it was really, really difficult, just struggle through that.
So the school you went to didn't have English as a second language programs or anything to help you?
They have an ESL class, but that's just one class. Your social sciences, your history, and your geography, it's all, you just put in there and you do a test. So the first time I just literally cried because I don't understand anything. I couldn't put anything down. So, yeah. So
oh, wow, that's so hard as a 14-year-old girl. And that's what everybody at 14 just wants to fit in and be liked.
Yeah.
You don't want to be different.
Yeah. So, and I learned English in half a year, basically.
Wow.
And then after that, it was just, really good. And I graduate my class and I skipped my senior year in high school because I do have the good basis. It just, once I conquered the language barrier and I was able to really excel.
How did you learn English? What was your method?
My method is watching half an hour comedy shows. And that really helped because it's kind of like immersion, total immersion. At first, I don't understand anything, but I just stuck with it. I remember watching different strokes at a time and watching, all these, those half an hour comedies. I understand a little bit, but since I'm also learning dictionary at my school, and suddenly I just remember that summer, I came January 1st to United States, and that summer, one day I was watching TV, I think it's a Silver Spoon or something. And then suddenly everything adds up. And I'm like, whoa, I understand. A light just turned on. And from that point on, I was able to build and build and build and build. So I think there's something to be said. If you want to learn language, just sit there and watch Spanish movie or Spanish TV, even if you don't understand. But at the time, you would also, on the side, try to learn those words as well.
So it's kind of interesting because you're not only learning the language, of course, you're learning the culture as well. And I'm just thinking of all of the shows that were around at that time and how representative or not of the culture they were. And so you're coming in, you're watching these shows, different strokes, Silver Spoons, probably Growing Pains, all of those shows that were on during the time. And did that help to inform you culturally, like about what expectations were, how to behave or anything like that? Or did you come up with any pitfalls related to like, this is how you're learning about it?
Well, it was very interesting because China is such a closed society where, you are discouraged basically from dating until you graduate from college, because they, of course, parents want you to concentrate on studying. And there's also this, at the time, not right now, it's very open, but at the time, the closeness between male and female, it's kind of, discouraged. They don't, so it's very open when you come here. And I remember one lesson I learned is that I would never look at people in the eyes because that's a show of disrespect. And I learned early on that you have to, just culture differences. You have to look at people in the eye to show you're honest. And that took me a really long time because, you're a girl, you're shy, you look like the floor when you talk to people. And so that's a culture difference you need to learn. So at the time, it was really flood of information about boy and girl because you would walk down the hall, you see people hugging and kissing. And for me, it's just a shock because I never saw my parents hug and kiss. And because it's just in Asian society, showing affection is at the time is not it's not traditional. It's not not as accepted. But now with opening of the Western door and with internet and movies, and there's more and more showing of affection, physical affection.
So what was that like for you then, making friends and having people be physically affectionate with you and being able to get comfortable with that?
I think I was very easy for me because I think even though, the 5 different love languages, for me, I think it's physical touch. And because my grandmother and, my mom, as I grow up, did show that to me, and I get feel loved when I'm physically touched. So even though I did not observe between male and female in China, and when I actually started dating and, somebody wrapped their hand around me or tried to kiss me, and, I was okay with that. So I think it's human. You want to be touched, you like it, and that's, and I associate with happy things with it. So it was okay.
What have you found in your studies? Because I know, and we can talk about that too, you have a YouTube channel that you're working on where you're sharing information and you're really focused on bringing knowledge to both Eastern and Western sides and being able to share everyone's expertise and knowledge and trying to meld those together. So, I mean, that in itself is fascinating. But of course, I always want to know about love and relationships.
Yes.
So I'm sure you've developed your own theories of what makes your marriage work and what might help other people.
Yeah. I think a lot of times there is one very important, Chinese have sayings, right? And one thing that's important, I think, is they call it treat your wife or your husband as guest. They call it 相敬如宾. 相敬 means you face each other, you respect each other as if you were each other's guest. So that's very important because that takes when we get familiar with somebody, we start taking things for granted. We mistreat, or we just kind of we become too comfortable. Mm-hmm. So if you treat your husband, your wife, as you would treat your friends or your guest, I think a lot of marriage would be better.
Oh, I agree. I have heard so many times when I'm working with couples in couples therapy, one of them or maybe both of them will say they treat their friends better than they treat me. And just wishing that they could have that kind of treatment from their partner.
Right.
That is definitely an issue that comes up a lot.
Yeah. So I think I think man really wants to be respected, And if you can show them that, you accept them and you respect them and they feel that love. I think they feel love through that they feel respected by the wife. And of course, wife want to be respected by feeling heard. And if the man, they don't have to solve anything. I'm an engineer. I know about try to solve something. And just for those men out there, because all my friend group, all my coworkers are male. And they just want to try to resolve an issue. But being a woman myself, I know a lot of time I just want to vent. And it's nice if a guy goes sit there with me and just nod their head. And they don't have to solve anything. Then I can solve my own problems. But it's just good for a guy just to be there and just be the shoulder and just, show compassion, show empathy. That's enough. One thing that communication is really important in marriage. And one thing that I found out is that expectation is really hurtful to a marriage. Because when you expect, you will have disappointment. And expecting without telling what you expect, that is worse. Because a lot of times we feel like, if so-and-so loves me, he or she should know what I'm wanting. And then you have this expectation like, okay, if he or she does such and such, I will feel loved. And when they fail that and you feel unloved and you get mad and the other party doesn't even know what you're mad at. So I would say just forget about this surprise or trying to guess each other's mind thing. Just say, hey, this is what feed me and this is what makes me happy. And if you would do that, that would be great. Or if you can, take care of me such way, it'll be great. And then when they do it and just accept that they love you because they did it, not because you asked for it. So that's...
Yes, I think that's huge, what you just said. They love you because they did it, not because you asked for it. I hear that all the time of people just saying, well, they should know, right? And the thing is, we don't know. If sometimes we come from completely different cultures, if not just microcultures of different families and different ways of doing things. And we don't know. Yeah. He doesn't know, she doesn't know, because all the stuff that your mom or your dad did for you, it's not like your partner's going to know that. Right. Or even what another partner did for you. And people get tripped up so much with that whole idea of, if I have to ask for it, that somehow takes away the value. And It absolutely doesn't. The fact that you ask for it and then they do it means that they had to step over their ego, or maybe even they had to work through something sometimes to do it.
Yeah, it's not convenient to do, and it may not make sense to them, but they still did it for you, which means they do love you.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Even being able to do something if it doesn't even make sense. Making their priority your priority. That's a huge display of love. Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
And the other thing I would say is that another Chinese saying, so this is, it's called 爱屋及乌, means if you love the house, you will even love the crow that resting on the house. So to me, it means total acceptance, because everybody has a crow on their beautiful house. And you love the house so much, you will love the flaws that came with the house. So that's unconditional love to me. And that's a total acceptance. And when people feel that, and you're like, okay, you're not perfect, I'm not perfect, I'll just accept as who you are, and I'm not going to change you. I think that's big. And also, instead of changing the other person, you can change yourself in a way to be more loving to yourself, and then he or she will respond by changing themselves without knowing they're changing. Because you have changed, so to fit you, they have to change as well.
Yeah, be the change that you want to see.
Correct. Yeah. If you want people to love you, do something loving to yourself. And then if you want other people to think you're beautiful, and then you have to first believe that you're beautiful, no matter what shape of you are, but you see the good in you, and other people will see the good in you.
Yeah, that I have an example of something that Jeff and I have gone through with that, which is, and I think this is common for many women, me struggling with making the time for myself to care for myself. Mm-hmm. And Jeff has no problem doing it. And at first I was more resentful of him doing it and somehow I had an expectation that he needed to provide that time or space for me, because I had trouble just validating that I was worthy of it without somebody else telling me I was worthy of it, which a lot of women struggle with. And I'm not saying men don't, but I just know a lot of women definitely struggle with that. And the more that I did that for myself and made the space for myself, and found that Jeff was completely accepting of it, and it wasn't like he wasn't willing to spend that time with our daughter while I went and did something for myself. I had written up this whole story in my head that my worth as a mother also depended on me spending more time with our daughter than he did. And so I needed to put the time in and not take care of myself and all. I mean, we all have our rough drafts of what we think the world is that are completely wrong. So I found that as I was able to find that was me who was doing it, I was writing that story, and I could create a space just like he did for myself to take care of myself. Mm-hmm. And he was perfectly willing to support me in that. I found that I was able to let go of the expectation that someone else needed to validate my needs for me, mm-hmm. just on that higher level. Mm-hmm. And then also not be resentful of him for his self-care. Yeah. So it was a win-win. But I mean, that's a big struggle for a lot of people. And just because it's hard to be able to know that you're worthy of that care.
Yeah, I resonate with that, because just 2 days ago, my husband and I had a little, myth, and, but it just resonated with that, because, he was saying, well, I was doing all these things about self-care, and I think he was a little bit resentful. He said, well, I said, I need to feed myself. He said, you feed yourself surely a lot.
Well, yeah, you're hungry every few hours.
And I thought about that, and I went back and I said to him, that's, I do not need to apologize for feeding myself, because that's, by doing that, I'm honoring him and our kids, because I can only take care of them if I take care of myself. And the other thing I said, well, why don't you try to feed yourself more? Maybe you will be happier, and in turn, I'll be happier, because our marriage will be better. At that, he just went silent, because I don't think he never thought about feeding himself. I guess he was being resentful because he was giving. But I said, you know what? I can take care of whatever you don't give. It's that if you have a bad mood, then it's harder for us to take care. Everything doesn't have to be perfect. Everything doesn't have to be, be the Joneses or something, we can deal with something less than perfect, but I think it's our mental state that we need to care for, because a lot of people, they are doers and they do take care of everything, but they would, every time they do something for others, and if they don't take care of themselves, they will have a little resentment. They feel they're not being paid back. Then that just stashes, and someday you will just blow up. And with this Christmas season coming, I think the point of giving is more, you don't expect anything in return. And you can only do that, only give without expectation in return, only if you feel taken care of by yourself. So, if you feel full, then you can give. If you are overflowing, then you can give. Otherwise, it's exchange, and that's not giving.
That reminds me of a saying that I heard in, I think it was House of Cards. Somebody said something about kindness, and he goes, kindness isn't kindness if you expect something in return. Correct.
And I think a lot of marriages have this issue because certain person give, and they expect something back. And when they don't, and they get really angry and they walk out. And
Well, that's that expectations that you were just saying before.
well, yes, that's true. And the other thing is that you have to think about, why do you give? A lot of people, as humans, we are in this world because we want to be loved. It's just human, nature, and that's what actually everything boils down to the word love. You either want to give love or you want to be loved. So a lot of times people do things to solicit love. I think that's difficult because sometimes you actually make this story and then you set yourself up for a disappointment. So because if you have a certain expectation of how other people should behave to show you're loved, then you can be disappointed. So everything is within. I think a lot of times we need to work on ourselves, just say, hey, do I love myself? Do I love myself the way I want to be loved? And when you reach that point, when you unconditionally love yourself, when you unconditionally accept yourself as who you are, then you can, when that is full, then when you love other people, do other things for other people, then there's no string attached. And even if the other people don't pay you back, you won't feel hurt. You won't feel resentful because you're doing it because you're so full, you want to share that happiness.
And how do people get to that point?
I actually got to that point by meditating. And other thing is that you really have to come to a space to realize how special every one of us are. Either depend on what kind of religion you are, or what kind of philosophy, or what kind of spirituality you have. You really have to value yourself. For me, I think the most important thing for me is being a mother. And this is what happened on my day. One day I was walking, and I basically asked the universe, say, hey, universe, what do you want from me? And universe kind of talked to me back and say, hey, I made you mother, so So I contemplate on that. And I say, well, I love my children so much, so what do I know? What do I expect from my children? So I came up with 3 things. Number 1 is that, hey, I just want them to be happy. They don't need to do anything. As long as they're happy, I'm pleased. Being a mother, Terah, I'm sure you would bend backwards for your kids and just to see them happy. They don't have to accomplish, to be a lawyer or doctors or anything. That's just icing on the cake. Just as long as they are, happy and joyful, and wherever they're in life, you're happy about that. So I think that's number 1, what the universe wants from us. And number 2 is, I think, being a mother, I bend backwards for my kids, and the worst is if they don't appreciate, if they complain. And I go, well, I'm doing the best I can. And I really just want appreciation and feeling grateful for what I did. And I think that's what the universe wanted back from us, to just be grateful for whatever circumstance in your life, knowing the universe is doing its best. And the reason you may be in a certain spot of your life is maybe for a lesson or to make your life even better later. So that's the other thing. Just being thankful. So I think just being accepting. I looked through a lot of religions. I looked through a lot of East and Western philosophy. And I realized there are 4 pillars of being free or being happy. I think being free is even higher state than happy. It's very, very simple, but when you really, most complicated things are simple. So those 4 things that I think that's essential to be happy, to be joyful, is that number 1, there is to be compassionate. And Eastern philosophy is very, very high on that. So, so it's being compassionate and say, hey, I am sorry. Say, I'm sorry to yourself. Say, I'm sorry this happened to you. I'm sorry for this experience that happened to you. I'm sorry for, maybe your upbringing or the difficult circumstance or the bully that you have suffered in your life. Just tell yourself, hey, I'm sorry for all the things that have happened. And then number 2 is say, I forgive you. That's forgiveness. So tell yourself, hey, I forgive you for all these mistakes you made because you did whatever you could have done at the time for the awareness you had. We never do anything that's not that we don't think it's good for us at the time, even we make mistakes. So forgive yourself. That's number 2. And number 3, say, I love you. Just say, hey, I accept you. I love you as who you are, wherever you are. You are the child of the universe. You are beloved. You are surrounded by positive energy and people and angels. And so I love you as who you are. Number 4, the last is just thank you. You thank for the new day every day you wake up. Because other people may not enjoy that. You thank for the sun. You thank for the people in your life. You thank for the food on your table. You thank for the trees, the birds, anything. And be genuine about it. So those are the 4 pillars actually can make you happy and joyful and free. So this is boils down to I don't know what's it called. It's a Hawaiian thing where a psychiatrist went to a lot of, people who has issues with depression, and he healed about 80% of them. So every day you close your eyes, very simple, either go to meditation or just find a happiest place or quiet place and just repeat, say, those 4 things. Say, find somebody easy first, somebody easy that you're easy to forgive, or a little child or something. So say, hey, I'm sorry, fill in whatever you want to say, and I forgive you for whatever you want to say, and then I love you, and at the end, thank you. So after that, you can do to yourself. Talk to yourself. Look at yourself as if you're most vulnerable time, maybe when you're 8 years old or 10 years old. Look at that child and say, I'm sorry. I forgive you. I love you, and thank you. And then you can work it up to somebody difficult to forgive. And you will come to a space and time where when you can forgive that most difficult person in your life, that's when you can completely forgive yourself. Because believe it or not, we are so hard on ourselves that that's always often the last person that we can forgive. And when you achieve that point, then you love yourself completely.
That's extremely wise. I teared up a little bit as you were saying that. I was visualizing
I just sit
myself at different ego states and ages, and then thinking of the big person in my life I would like to forgive, and then I haven't yet, and how powerful and freeing it is to let that go. For yourself, not for the other person, but for you to not have to carry that, because that just weighs you down. And I can see how I'd love to know, when you think of it, the person's name that did this research that was able to.
It's just I think I can look it up. It's kind of Hawaiian name, Hanapatra, or I can look it up. But
Okay.
the thing is, I saw that, and then I kind of expand to, Buddhism and Christianity, and I see all the good religions. If you take away all the text, all the stories, it really just boils down to these 4 things. Have compassion, have forgiveness, loving, and be thankful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think no matter what religion you have, what spirituality you have, if you can base yourself in those 4 pillars, you're okay.
I would say more than okay. You're
Yeah,
free.
you're free. You're free. It's, and with forgiveness, I want to say it took me a long time to understand. It's also a lesson. I have gone through 6 years just learning. Forgiveness is not really tell people that, hey, you can step on me again. It's not forgive that person. You really don't have to tell them or anything. I think not forgiving is more like if somebody hurt you, it's like they shot an arrow in your heart, let's say. And a lot of times we just sit there, and every time we don't forgive, a little bit more poison leak into your body. And I think we do it for ourselves, like Tara said. We do it for our own well-being. And you don't let that person keep on hurting you and over and over and over and over by you not forgiving them. And sometimes we don't want to forgive other people because we feel we actually use that as a medal or trophy because we feel other people owe us. So we actually, I guess, internalize it. We make it this pain almost like an excuse so we can be mad at someone and, or be a victim. Sometimes it feels good to be a victim because it gets the attention that we need, and you feel that, that person will be forever lower than you because they owe you. And so, but it does feel good to our ego at the time, but ultimately you are the one who's going to be hurt.
So I'm sure you've heard I believe it's Buddha saying that holding a grudge or not forgiving is akin to holding a hot piece of coal thinking that you're going to hurt the other person.
Correct. Very good. Exactly, Jeff. It's just do it for you. Don't do for the other person. Do it for your freedom and, do your happiness. Don't have to do it for other people.
Yeah, and I think, thinking about the idea of forgiveness in terms of trauma, just to be really clear, like you said, when you're letting go of something like that, you're not saying that what happened to you is okay.
Correct. It's not okay.
You are just not allowing it to continue to hurt you.
Yes.
You're letting go of this traumatic event. You're letting go of holding that person inside you that did this horrible thing to you.
Mm-hmm.
And you're freeing yourself of it. But you're still setting boundaries to protect yourself
Definitely.
and understand what you learned from it.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, sometimes there's no way to protect yourself from trauma,
Yeah.
but even understanding that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and that you have the ability then to be able to heal yourself by letting your body release it.
Yes. Yes. So it's a most difficult lesson in life. Just forgive because, there are a lot of people who's hurt, but, don't love yourself and don't keep hurting yourself because somebody wronged you, and don't allow that person to keep on wronging you for the rest of your life.
I like the visual you were saying about how it's almost as if they hit you with an arrow and it just continually keeps, giving you poison as, think of it like an IV drip that
Yeah.
you've got an IV in your arm, and it's just every time they think about it,
Right.
it just drips a little bit more poison into your veins.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually probably really happening
Yes.
with your hormones that are whenever you think of that certain thing, is it does actually
Yes.
do something
Yes, it does.
to you. That's not just fantasy.
No, it's not, because a lot of illnesses is from feeling. It does something to your body, for sure.
There's actually, I read this in researching trauma, and I know the statistics are not going to be entirely correct, so I won't say a percentage, but they found
80% of statistics are wrong.
are made up, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
But there's a very high correlation basically that was found between autoimmune disorders
Yes.
and trauma. And I can't remember what the percentage is, but it was very high, and they were looking at people who have autoimmune disorders already and then looking at trauma history. So there you go.
Yeah, I think there's a big correlation to anything. At cancer, cancer definitely is. There's a study done for people who has emotional trauma, the cancer, it does cause that. Everybody have cancer cell within us. Why some people have cancer, some people don't. And because a lot of people who hold grudges, they have higher rates of that cancer sometimes.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do with being able to look at situations with curiosity and not defense, and being able to understand why a situation occurred doesn't mean that it wasn't wrong what happened, if there was something wrong about it, but it does give you an understanding so that you can let it go. And that, thinking about how people argue, and a lot of times people are coming in, I'm right and you're wrong, it's black or white, I've been hurt by you, you hurt me, and I'm stuck in this right and wrong. And if you could understand what was going on with the other person that led them to this, it might help you let it go, because then you can see that the other person was really just trying to make the best decision they could in their circumstance, like you were talking about earlier, thinking about yourself that way. And so going through those 4 pillars, kind of fast pace when you're in an argument, or an argument is beginning, I think could really help someone to be able to step back and go through those 4 and go through them for yourself, and then go through them for your partner, and then come back to the argument. And just to be able to say, hey, I need to take a break. I need to just go get myself in the right place for this conversation, and then come back.
Yeah, definitely. There's, I think everything is a process of us persuading ourselves. Just if you can look at something from different perspective, then everything's, glass cup full, a glass half full, half empty situation, right? So this is a Buddhism belief in, I'm not going to say it's right or wrong, because, it's just, I study it as a philosophy. But it's kind of a way of people persuade themselves to help them with healing or help them with forgive. You don't have to do it, but it just, I thought about it. I think a lot of religions or whatever, it's a way to teach people how to think. Not necessarily it's, that's absolute correct or not. So in Buddhism, there's such thing called karma. So I was learning about it just recently. I was thinking, hey, that's everybody have different misconception about it. And in a way, I kind of realized through my own understanding, my own journey, that thinking about karma, it's certain way of seeing ourselves of that hold. Say, okay, so if somebody's wronged you, let's say, and so at the point of you wanting to forgive them, and it's getting hard, so you say, okay, maybe karma that past life I may owe this person something. Now I have paid back, and now I wash my hands of them. Our path will never cross in this life or next or whatever, if you believe in next lives. So basically, in a way, it's cutting the thread, cutting the bond between you and that person. You say, okay, whatever happened, basically it's, like what's it called?
Like your debt's been paid.
Yeah, your debt's been, it's not, in a way your debt's been, you call it scratch, basically, and
okay, yeah.
it's like, okay, done, over with. I don't know what happened before, or I didn't know what hope happened past life, and you were wrong to hurt me the way I am today, but I want to be free of you. Basically, it's not accepting what they did. Say, I want to be untied from you. I want to be free from you. So I don't want either you pay me back in my next life, or I don't want you to pay me back, because I do not want to associate with you. So that's it, done. And you tell the universe, I don't want cross path with this person ever again.
I like that. Kind of,
it's freeing.
It's kind of like even Steven, right? We're just done.
Yeah.
It's over, and I don't have to hold on to this person. They owe me nothing. And just the idea of thinking someone owes you something and waiting for that debt to be repaid just keeps you connected to this negative event.
Yes, you're connected.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another, if it helps you, if you can, that's just a different way of thinking. You don't have to believe Buddhism or anything to do that, but you say, hey, do it with the way you want, but it's just for people who's not kind to you or good to you, that you don't want be in your life, just say, hey, I release you. I actually thank them. Say thank you for the lesson. Thank you for, I'm a more knowledgeable person because of it. You appear in my life because there's a lesson to be learned. I'm stronger because of this. But I release you now, and we will walk parallel paths from now on.
So, obviously in the Western culture, making money, success, fame, and things like that is considered a really high value.
Yes.
So, and this kind of thought process of, freedom comes from within, and it's not from amount of money in the bank or something else.
Yes.
So I was watching. So have you ever heard of Michael Jordan, basketball player?
Yes.
Okay. So Michael Jordan, considered one of the best basketball players ever to play.
Yes.
He was at the Hall of Fame, and I recently watched his Hall of Fame speech, which was a few years ago. So it's about 20, 30 minutes long. And in his speech, here he is, considered the best basketball player ever. Plenty of money. He's probably made the most of anybody ever in basketball. And he spends literally at least 20 minutes of the 30-minute speech talking about all the people that did him wrong. He just went through the list of in college, in high school. This was somebody who made the team that I didn't. And not only did that, I brought him here. This coach did this to me. This, back office person did this to me. I didn't get picked first on the draft. This was what was somebody against me. I mean, like, he just went on and on and on about all the different things and people that did him wrong. And even to the point that he was complaining about the price of the tickets that for this event to bring his family to. Yes. And you're watching, and that's it. And he looked at it from the standpoint of, that was the fuel for the fire to make sure that I was going to be good. And it got me up and going at this thing. And you kind of walk away from the thing watching it going, man, I really respected the guy until I saw that. Yeah. Now I realize he's looking at it as, that's the only reason that I was really good. And I'm like, no, you probably would have been good either way. You wanted to be good.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't need to point at all these other people as like they're doing you wrong.
Yeah. So, I would feel compassion for them and feel sad because even though with all this money he have, he's not a happy person because, if you are constantly, you are your own prisoner and he cannot free himself from all these things because he is a victim. He has made himself a victim. He's playing a victim role. So then he will attract more of that into his life. He will always feel victimized because he will make each situation into that he's a victim. And he cannot be happy, he cannot be free, no matter how much money he has.
Yeah, it was really interesting to watch it.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I think it just really shows that victim mentality doesn't have anything to do with socioeconomic status or success or anything. You just put yourself in that, and that's your state.
Yeah. He imprisoned himself, basically, and, I think happiness is not a, I know it says pursuit of happiness, but I think happiness is not to be pursued. Happiness is already here. It's within you. Happiness is a state of mind. You don't have to manifest anything to be happy. It's a state of mind. It's a state of being. And happiness is not ultimate goal. Freedom is.
And so there's a great documentary on Netflix, and it's called Happy, I think.
Right.
But, like you were saying there, there's been a lot of studies on depression, what makes people sad, and but there's not been a lot of study on happiness. And so this documentary goes through looking at people who consider themselves very happy. And again, going back to socioeconomic status, there was no correlation between success, socioeconomic status, anything like that. It was just people seeing that they were connected to others and that they were happy with those connections. So the happiest guy was this guy that lived in a very rural area in a tent with no running water, electricity, anything, with like his 8 family members and all of that kind of stuff, where people would be like, oh my gosh, that looks awful. But he was so happy. And so again, it just shows that people are looking for happiness in all these other places where, like you said, it's just available for anyone that can find it.
Yeah, it's within, find gratitude first and then happiness, write a gratitude journal every day, 3 things. Hey, I'm happy I'm alive, I'm happy the sun's shining, I'm happy, the flowers there, I'm happy that, write something that's just see the world through a child's eye. Basically, pretend yourself as 2-year-old, everything is new. Write something down when you feel grateful, and then, happiness comes within.
So I actually do that. So every day I write 5 things that I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
And I also try to push for the hard grateful stuff, not just simple things like, my wife and daughter and, like the simple stuff you'd hear at a Thanksgiving dinner or something. And it has to be different every day. 5 different things every day.
Good.
And what that does is you start to notice things in your normal life all the time. You start to go, most people would notice the traffic.
Yeah.
Like the traffic's bad. But I sit there and I go, wow, the road system actually works pretty good. That's pretty amazing. The stoplights work.
Yeah.
The painted lines.
Yeah.
It is really good.
Exactly.
Like you could go thousands and thousands of likes of things out there that you just blow by and don't even care about if you're not in that mindset. And once you get in that mindset, you start to go, wow, just to drive for you to drive over here, there was a million things that had to go right.
Yes.
For you to get here. The car, there's a million components for that to work. The roads, all the other people, the weather, there's just so much that once you start to realize that, you start to go, oh, wow, there's a lot to really care about in the world.
Yeah, for sure. There's, I think I remember my experience when I first day I went to Hawaii. I go like, this is paradise, so beautiful. Everything is just green. I'm just wowed, every minute was just amazing. And by the end of vacation, the 10th days, you sense get more used to it. It's like, you don't see as much stuff as you saw the first day. Just like if we walk into a chemistry lab and something stinks, and you're like, okay, that stinks. Within 5 minutes, you're like, oh, nothing smells. So I think we get, we're in this life, we get inundated so much information, and we just get desensitized. And so you need to be mindful of getting back sensitized to things. That's what I see things from a child's perspective. And one day I was listening to Oprah Winfrey, and she even said, when I get in the shower, I'm thankful for this hot water running down. And being from another country, I know, everybody take for granted hot water in shower, or, driving instead of walking gazillion hours. And, but being in the United States for so long, I do too forget, right? But I still have to go, okay, this is not status quo everywhere else. It's not, it's to be appreciated. Every ordinary thing, you go outside, look at the leaves turning beautiful, autumn, yellow and orange. That's to be appreciated.
I think about that a lot with how good we have it. Mm-hmm. So I always say this all the time. I live better, and most people, at least in the United States, even if you worked at just the mall or something, you just had just a regular old job or just something simple, like just take the lowest person who lives socioeconomics that's living in an apartment with TV and running water and all that stuff. I'm like, you're living better than any ruling king had ever lived and couldn't even imagine it.
Yeah.
How good it is.
Right. I
mean, that's, like Julius Caesar, he couldn't even imagine this. It's Genghis Khan couldn't even, this wasn't even a thought process in their minds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's the same, just the 4 pillars: be grateful and be thankful. And, I wish Thanksgiving is more of bigger holiday here versus just straight jump for Halloween to Christmas, because everybody, need to just slow down and be mindful and just be thankful, and,
so for everyone listening who has been listening and then forgot the 4 pillars already, which, is easy to do, is you're getting into the story and you're like, what were those again? Can you go over those one more time?
Yeah,
as we're closing.
Yeah, I think going over just if you say those 4 things as you sit in a quiet place, say, I'm sorry, I forgive, I love you, and thank you. So these 4 things, if you write down, and then that translates to, when you say I'm sorry, it translates to compassion. And I forgive you to forgiveness. I love you to, self-love or loving others, unconditional love. And then thank you is just being grateful and being thankful.
Thank you for coming today and sharing all of your wisdom.
Thank you for having me.
So for others who would like to hear more of what you have to say, how can they find your YouTube channel that you're doing?
Yeah, I'm starting a YouTube, and I have just started. Basically, what I'm going to do is I want to share those Eastern knowledge, especially on healing. There are a lot of acupressure points, or diet and exercise and things like that, and especially. Also, I think I want to do the 4 pillars next, because I think being in the right mental state is the foundation of a self-heal. I think we all have capacity to self-heal. Our body is meant to heal themselves. Our body can heal if we just move some blockages and just allow it. And I even think, I feel like I'm a healer, because I feel that not that I heal, it's that I guide, or I allow, or I guide people so they can allow their body to self-heal. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming today.
Thank you, Terah. Thank you, Jet.